Hello.
Yes, Dr. Saeed Veer, can you hear me?
Gir sir, I'm hearing you. So is our guest already here?
Yes. We have been joined by Dr. Arshad Hussain Saab. Dr. Saab, please unmute yourself.
जी
अस्सलाम वालेकुम डॉक्टर साहब।
अस्सलाम, कैसे हैं आप?
जी शुक्र है अल्लाह का। आप कैसे हैं?
बिल्कुल ठीक, बिल्कुल आप ठीक है?
जी
जी डॉक्टर
I am.
Yes.
So
Mir.
all the participants have not joined yet.
Yeah, they are joining within a couple of minutes. We'll be having all of them.
जी.
So I welcome Dr. Arshad Hussain, Professor in Psychiatry, Department of Psychiatry, Government Medical College, Srinagar. And I also welcome all the participants to this afternoon session today on COVID-19 and mental health. Our moderator for this session is going to be Dr. Syed Mir, Department of Clinical Biochemistry, University of Kashmir. First of all, many thanks to Dr. Arshad Hussain Saab for accepting our invitation. He has been our regular resource person at UGC HRDC, University of Kashmir. And recently, we conducted a webinar series with him on COVID-19 and mental health, considering the significance of this particular topic, because most of us are usually at home, and many people are confronting with issues related to mental health. So it becomes very important to know more and more about these issues so that we can cope up with our daily circumstances and the challenging demands of these times. And in that respect, Dr. Arshad Saab has been very helpful. He has educated a good number of college teachers. We have had a webinar in collaboration with GDC Pampur earlier, then another webinar in collaboration with the GDC Bijbihara. And earlier also a series of lectures have been delivered by Dr. Arshad Hussain Saab at UGC HRDC on mental health in general. So we welcome you wholeheartedly, sir, once again. And I request today's moderator, Dr. Syed Mir, to introduce our resource person, Dr. Arshad Hussain, and welcome him formally. Over to you, Dr. Syed Saab.
Assalamu alaikum everybody, and a very good afternoon. It's my pleasure to introduce Professor Arshad Hussain, who is our Professor of Psychiatry at Institute of Mental Health and Neurosciences, GMC Srinagar. I am sure all the participants of the J&K already know him quite well. So, and just for the people who are joining us from the other parts of the India, Professor Arshad Saab is our main psychiatrist. I can say one of the top-notch psychiatrists of the country, and number one in our state. He's secretary to Indian Association of Biological Psychiatry Association, and he's also secretary to Society of Bipolar Disorders India. Other than that, he is member and convener of the different committees. For example, he is the convener of Ethics Committee of Indian Association of Psychiatrists. Professor Arshad Saab has his the undergraduate medical studies from Government Medical College Srinagar. Later on, did his MD in psychiatry. He has always remains among the top position holders in his academics, whether it was during the MBBS or during his PG, MD. He was always one of the top performers in his batch. He has been a lot involved in the psychiatric issues of our valley. Also has been involved in such. I have first time known him in person, actually in such a course in person at UGC HRDC. Unfortunately, this time it is we are not in person. Dr. Arshad has many projects. He has been awarded the ICMR project to study the bipolar disorders in the valley. He has published n number of papers in national and international journals regarding the various psychiatric issues. Without wasting too much time here, I think we will be definitely enjoy listening to him for a very important topic, COVID-19 and mental health. Professor Saab, definitely this is a big issue right now we are facing. We see a lot of in these days now, even a road rage and even issues at home, which I probably can think are probably because of all the stresses we have. In addition to this, this added a lot the COVID-19 issue. Please deliberate on now. Up to you.
Assalamu alaikum, and thank you very much for inviting me once again. It's a pleasure always to be here. And this time we are going to deliberate on a very, very important issue, which is COVID-19 and mental health. As most of you will be already knowing that world is already calling it as a dual epidemic. Dual epidemic in the sense that the epidemic of the COVID-19 and then the mental health impact of it. Probably in last 1 century, there probably has not been so much focus on mental health as has been very recently with COVID-19. As all of you know that, when we talk about mental health, I'm not going to only talk about the pathology of the COVID-19, but the physiological responses which humans did while we had the COVID-19 response. Now, one that COVID-19 in terms of an event was a very, very big event of this type that it happens once in centuries that you have these kinds of events. And as all of us know that all kinds of events, small or big, have an impact on human mind, human brain, human psyche. And once the events are so big, so magnanimous, so huge, the impacts are also bigger. And same happened with COVID-19. There were individual responses to COVID-19, societal response to COVID-19, and probably till now, COVID-19 is dictating, how human civilization is working at this point of time. From March to now on, it has been all about COVID-19, and COVID-19 dictated that how the human civilization, functioned, worked. As all of you know that the usual response of human beings to such events is what I call as fear. And many times people think that, fear is an abnormal response, or, fear is something which is pathological. But I usually differ on that, because I think that being fearful in such situations is protective, is part of the survival of human beings. And I have said it many times, and I will say it again, that humans owe their existence on this earth for their ability to negotiate disasters, natural or man-made. On this earth, we had much bigger and powerful organisms living at different points of time, including dinosaurs. We have outlived them all because of our coping and resilience mechanisms. And I definitely tell you that one of them has been our responses to fear. And if you look at it in an evolutionary mechanism, you will see that, the fear of the wild animals made us to enter into caves and save ourselves. And that those caves then slowly evolved into houses and homes. Fear of hunger made us to evolve in a way that we became agriculturists. So the fear has dictated human evolution from long duration of time. And the responses have been appropriate to the kind of fear which was inflicted. Now, all of us know that at this point of time when COVID-19 came, it came out of blue almost. Humans world over, till that point of time, the human civilization had thought that we have overcome. We have overcome and we are in control. And that's what COVID-19 took away. It told us that you have still not overcome and you are still not in control. And that loss of control is eternal to whatever mental health morbidity we will see in future because of COVID-19. Because lots of human beings in this world perceived this event as an abnormal event, abnormal in a degree that they thought that they lost control over what they had actually in control till that point of time. And that will be very eternal to how human beings will evolve, or how human beings will respond in terms of mental health post-COVID. But presence of fear was also very important in terms of survival. People who had appropriate doses of fear were the ones who will maintain distances, who will wear masks, who will keep necessary hygiene for actually keeping them surviving. Because that was very essential. Not having fear, absence of fear, is at the other spectrum of the pathology. Now, I usually tell people that in such situations, you should have an appropriate dose of fear. When you have appropriate dose of fear, then you use your survival instincts to actually utilize them in a way that you survive, which is very important. Survival per se is important. It is proportional to the fear. Now, absence of fear is something which actually led to mortality and morbidity. And my view of this is very counter to how people think about the mental health morbidity because of COVID. So I take it the other ways, because that is because of the culture we live in. The culture, while the mental health morbidity, which the West is talking about, is about losing control, being confined, not able to actually live your life the way you used to, and very, very fearful. In our cultures, it was quite contrary to that. You had lot of culture almost without fear. First, all of you know, because all of us belong to the culture, there was almost denial of existence of COVID-19. Even in the strictest of lockdown period, you will see people confined to their homes during day, but in evenings they will stroll, they will go out. In fact, except for the urban parts of the Kashmir, most of other places were going on with their routines of how they do it. Except for, there was this still, fear of being quarantined, or fear of being, isolated. Except for those initial March, April months, most of the culture was behaving, there was sort of denial about this illness. And there were lots of theories actually moving on, which might have been, you could debate that mental health wise, that, once you are in denial, there might not have been any impact. But then at some point in June, July, that denial cost us in terms of mortality and morbidity. That was the time when our hospitals started getting overwhelmed, when people with problems because of COVID started rushing to our hospitals, and when beds started getting overwhelmed, when families started getting affected. And before I go to the mental health morbidity, it's very vital to understand how did we actually tackle it. So that is the point when probably as culture we broke the denial first. So denial was broken, and we started accepting it as a calamity, as a God-given calamity. And then came our strength. Till then, we were behaving irresponsibly, or whatever you call it. But at that point of time, we started accepting it, and we started, our mature defense mechanisms started working, which means that, we started becoming altruistic. That's what happens in our culture. I have studied our culture in terms of how do we deal with traumas, and that's how we have done it over centuries, and that's how we did it that point of time. The families started becoming hospitals. Help started pouring in from quarters which were unexpected. There were lots of these non-governmental organizations associated with mosques and muhallas, which started getting the oxygen equipments. People started actually delivering that at homes. People started giving treatments at homes. The compounder of the mohalla started coming and giving even remdesivir at homes. All that at the peak of the COVID. So all of us as a culture helped in a way. Me as a doctor, there were WhatsApp groups. People will send me messages midnight. You will have lots of people telling that, we woke up Dr. Arsad during midnight and told him that this is what happened to what will I do? So whatever I knew, I will tell that time, or I will contact my other friend, because usually with the time lapses in the West, so you will have somebody, chest physician, or, a special internist in UK or US, waking up, you will message him that I have a friend who has, and he will give you a response. So all of that together. So use of internet, use of camaraderie, use of social networking and bonding, which have been again and again talking in terms of our culture, that huge lot. People, the doctors who had left Kashmir in 90s, 80s, who had almost no connection with Kashmir now in terms of physically, started getting into our homes in terms of, because we had internet facilities available, WhatsApp. So they started doing WhatsApp calls. They started guiding families that how to deal with the patient with COVID. And most of this peak, June, July, August, we dealt with this in our own way, and probably limited mortality and morbidity in a very difficult way. We had an easy way of having appropriate fare and doing social distancing, masking ourselves, maintaining hygiene. We probably add on that, but then we actually did it in our own way, as we, probably something happens to us when we are really under pressure. That's what gets best out of us as a culture, and we did that. But then it had its costs. Hereafter, what I say is on the basis of research which we are doing. While world is dealing with the mental health morbidity, which happened because of their getting isolated, quarantined, because of them actually having the fear, we are dealing with the mental health morbidity which happened because of mortality and morbidity which was created by COVID. If you have listened to the mayor of London about 2 weeks back, he said that, we are in crisis because out of every 30 people, one is infected in London. Do you know when we had those stats? In March or April. Currently, the seroprevalence studies tell us that we have probably already crossed almost 60% seroprevalence levels. So while their mental health morbidity is entirely because of trying to fight COVID by preventive measures, by limiting mortality and morbidity, and the antecedent fear and isolation created because of that, our mental health morbidity is because of the mortality and morbidity actually which was created by COVID. And our research, which is in initial phases, tells us that families who lost deaths which happened in families because of COVID, these are the high-risk families of actually keeping watch for mental health morbidity. Because all of you know that this time, while we were dealing it with our own culture, but in our own cultural way with the COVID pandemic, but deaths we couldn't deal in our own culture way. You know that when deaths happened, the most important parts of our healing, which happened with the grief, couldn't be done. which means that people who died, their families, you know what death in Kashmir means, that almost everybody visits you. You find solace in people coming to you, talking to you, empathizing with you on your loss. And that has been our strength in terms of losses. Even enemies visit at those points of time, even if the enemies, if there's a death. But this was the time when even close relatives couldn't visit you. So you didn't get that solace, you didn't get that empathy in times of grief. And super added on that, if any one of us has seen how people were buried in initial phases of COVID, it created stress in us. It looked completely out of sorts. You really, something was missing, something terribly was bad with the way the people were buried. And it was for people who didn't have their own relation or own relative actually buried in a way. But even seeing those gory pictures on the videos on internet looked something which created lots of lots of fear and also lots of stress in people. And now think of families who had to actually go through this kind of thing. I have been because I told you that because the kinds of research we started, one of them is with these families. I find it very difficult to talk to these families. These are the ones while we think that we have to support them continuously and try to limit whatever mental health morbidity we can still do. And the kind of stigma also those families faced in the initial time. If you search Google, in fact, in the March itself, I could see it coming. And I wrote a piece on stigma. In the March itself, probably there was nobody had written anything on stigma till then, but I could see it coming. As a medical student, I knew how leprosy, tuberculosis were stigmatized, and I could see it coming for COVID. And I wrote a piece about it. I tried to actually rationalize, logicalize with people that stigma is something which needs to be kept away. While we keep ourselves safe, how do we actually deal with the stigma part of it? But that didn't happen in that way. The stigma was created. All of you know, because all of us belong to this culture, we know that initially if somebody was diagnosed with COVID, how did we deal with that, that family? There were not even, I know of families with whom I talked. I understand that there might have been difficulty in going and attending, but there was even people did not call. I know families who, once they had a death, then other people had symptoms. They did not know where to ring, where to get that help. The relations will be so fearful, nobody even came with that food, which is so eternal to our whole grief process. Once there's a mortality, once somebody dies because of any reason. But then also, in terms of morbidity, if there was somebody sick with COVID, how did we deal with those families? Did we pick up a phone and call them almost every day? Did we try to empathize with them? Did we help them with small things? That didn't happen. Even though, I tell you the strengths as well, I told you that how we dealt as a family, that was tremendous. If written in a proper way, that will, in fact, in any culture, in any scientific journal, that will be a very indigenous way of handling the COVID. How did we deal with it? And how did we let hospitals deal with more sick? Is because how the families dealt with it. So that's it. But then on other hand, is also important that there was stigmatization, there was isolation of families, particularly who had mortality and morbidity. And then the other group, which I think is very important in terms of the mental health morbidity post-COVID, is the ones, the way initially the quarantining and isolation was done. It didn't look that we are dealing with a medical illness. It looked like people are being jailed. So, the quarantining process did not involve lots of counseling, lots of talking to people, so that it comes from them within, that I need to isolate, I need to be away from my family. So it also is a group which really needs to be looked at, and we are looking at that group also, particularly the initial periods when the quarantine was done. And in fact, many young men who were initially quarantined, some of them did seek our help. Now, they had gone into extremely fearful situations because of that, and which was disproportionate to the kind of fears they could have. But then I also understand that while we were dealing it with COVID, nobody had answers also. Maximum things which we have as human beings dealt from last 1-2 centuries has been by the answers which usually will come from science. And this time the science itself was lacking in the terms of all of you many of you will be students of science like me. It was so changing. There was nothing definitive coming out. So that created further, once there are not answers, it's very, very stressful. So that created another sort of, you did not know how answers to many. For example, one of the things I told you about grieving and stigmatization. Even though I did try my way to invoke science and do some advocacy on that, but then there were not definitive things, which people will get convinced on, because, world over, the process was same. But I was not bothered about world over, because the world over, otherwise also the process is same. The West we were imitating in terms of grief, the grief happens that their way. The proper, the dead body almost becomes the property of the state after some time, and then you are allotted a time period, and these things are very regular there, but they were not very regular. So that was something very terrible. But I do think that the way the disease struck us and the way they were not answers was also responsible in a way that the responses were in that way. So in retrospect, we do become wiser, but at that point of time, it was very, very difficult. And then I always have been asked about that, how do kids deal with, how did kids deal with the kind of stresses of mental health as they happened? Because they were thought to be one of the vulnerable populations, kids. There's some things which happened. One, I told you that in general, the proportion of fear in our culture was not that huge. That might have been somewhat saving for lots of children. Because usually by nature, children do not fear anything. So their fear usually comes from parental figures, the carers. So if they are disproportionately fearful, that will get imbibed in the kids as well. Now, what is very important, I found that, few of the kids which we saw over a period of time, they were the kids whose parents might not have been that fearful themselves, but the kind of news they watched 24/7 during that time was something which contributed to the fears which the kids went into and needed some degrees of help. In fact, the advisory I had put in public domain in probably first week of April spoke in length about that how do we actually need to avoid watching hyperbolic channels and news for some time and just shut ourselves off from that, because there was not much science coming out of them. All of us knew at that point of time the 3 or 4 things which need to be done in terms of preventing ourselves from COVID, and that was it. All other was hyperbole, all other was non-science, and all other was just to create, the fear which is pathological, which is not needed. There's no need to show dead bodies, there is no need to actually inflate figures, there's no need to do that. While we give appropriate kind of fear of an illness, we tell what are the things to be done. All of the people knew that social distancing, wearing mask, sanitizing your, keeping your hands clean is something which is going to prevent the illness. But people, they remained, because one, that there was lockdown, there was nothing to do, so people started watching it, while adults were able to deal with that news, but there were kids also listening to the same thing. And for kids to really differentiate between imaginary things and the reality is sometimes very, very difficult. I usually tell people that it's the difference while we watch an movie as an adult, as a child. So the very, very emotional movies I used to watch as a child. So the level of emotions will go up and down with the movie. So you will feel happy when the hero starts beating the villains, and you will feel sad when the villains will do trickery to the hero, and all the emotions till the end of the movie. So you will get into that thing. And when you deal with it at adult, it is at a deadly different level. So same happens in terms of news and dead bodies being seen. So that created lots of fears in kids. And then obviously, the mechanisms of coping which the kids usually do is playing outside, which I advocate at most of the times, that playing sports, playing games, being with other kids, going to school. That's how kids develop, and that's very important and essential for the development of kids. And that's all which was lacking, which was not happening. So I do think that there was some kinds of stress in families, particularly where we had dealings like that. But then I think one good thing happened, which is something is that these online classes started. Well, I understand the other point of view. People talking about that. Children started getting, addicted to mobile and all those things. There's a lot being told about that, but there have been a positive in terms of mental health about that. That's how the kids actually dealt with. I remember, my own kids, being ready in the morning and in the class very enthusiastically. Actually, those 2-3 hours will go. And I also should compliment, talk about the teachers who took classes during that time, and they were very wonderful. I was part of many of these classes in terms of listening, and there was not much focus on literacy. There was a lot of focus on education, being happy, being playing. And that was what was necessity. I don't know whether somebody had told them to do like that or whatever, but I think many of these schools did deal with kids in that way. There was not much focus on literacy. There was more focus on education, overall development, talking, playing games. And that was probably what was needed that time. While I am an ardent follower and ardent supporter of the physical spaces, not somebody who thinks that virtual spaces should replace the social spaces, social physical spaces. But I do think that the virtual spaces did help people to cope with the stresses during this time. And I do think that online classes did benefit for that period of time for kids to actually get themselves away from COVID stresses, really deviate their attention from talking only code 24/7. And they did feel that they are with other kids, and most of the times teachers did not touch that topic at all. That was also very good. And there was in that also, I do think that some literacy kids did also learn. We agree with that, it or not, but I do think that it was better than not having anything. If there was nothing of that sort, I think it really would have been very, very stressful for kids. But some people do tell me that there are places where it didn't happen. But then there is a counter argument. Those were the places actually where kids were playing, because I traveled almost a lot of Kashmir during that period of time. I found kids playing in playing grounds in rural areas, doing everything normally. That was also fine now. That's besides the point, because we did talk that initially the way we dealt with the pandemic. But yes, I do think that kids were in a pod boil, and we need to have systems and support systems continuously for the kids to see that if anybody of them have developed some extra fears, which could be dealt with at this point of time before they actually translate into something more. Then other groups which we actually are currently dealing with was the healthcare workers per se. I tell you that healthcare workers, probably, if you think that there was a combined group in stressful situation during COVID, that definitely was healthcare workers. Because at one you had to actually perform your duties, and at the other end you had to keep yourself safe as well, and there were not enough guidelines on that front. For example, let's think of our branch. The only guidelines were you just do online consultations, no need to actually do physical consultations. But then that was not possible in cultures like ours. My hospital, we did not stop our outpatients. We did not stop, in fact, any services. And post, in March, April, we saw around 150, 200 patients per day. Post that, we will definitely, almost every day see around 400 patients coming. This was besides our at least 4 teleservices which were running around the clock. But people will still come because, we know that how much technology is available, how much people get inspired on that technology. There still is a lot of barrier on that. So you had people coming, and we had to actually devise our own means and methods. In fact, we have sent this research paper for publication, wherein because no psychiatry hospital was running in world, and we were the only hospital which was running everything what Institute of Mental Health has, from outpatient, inpatient, electroconvulsive therapies, counseling sessions. Everything was going on. So we have just written that whole story. How did we do? We do not know right or wrong. We are not saying that was the right method, but we just did it, and how we did it during our time. But I tell you that had its costs as well. Almost 60% of our 60 to 70% of our faculty are seroprevalent. They already have had an infection with COVID. Employees, almost the same things, but we were lucky that our inpatients were saved. The seroprevalence in our inpatients still is less than 1%, which was very good by God's grace. And same difficulties in everywhere. I will tell you one recent episode. Because now we had devised this outpatient room wherein the consultant will sit on a chair, then there will be a 2 meters distance, there will be the postgraduate sting for taking a tail assessment, and then there will be a patient. So this will be about the corner, how we dealt with it. So there'll be lots of patients who will say that, how can patients be seen like, we want to hug the doctor, the elderly lady, I want to hug the doctor. That kind of empathy was missing during this time. We had to be very strict in how we dealt with it. It felt here as well. It was not only that the patients will feel that we also felt that, I felt that very badly many a times, that you wanted to put that hand, or you wanted to, you cannot, you had to actually deal with the time. You had to be strict many a times with the patients who wanted to come near and tell you in ear something. But then for the greater good, we try to do. And I can tell you that that will be story of all healthcare workers who were working in the hospital. So it was not very, very easy for healthcare workers. So that is another group, combined group, which would have felt the stresses of this, in the COVID-19. But overall, I'll try to end it at a positive note and make it more interactive and take questions from you. Is that mental health morbidity in our part of the world will not be, while mental health morbidity will be huge world over, and I fully agree that this will be a dual epidemic. But in parts like ours, while it was dealt very differently than the parts, other parts of the world, the mental health morbidity will be limited to certain high-risk groups, and those will be people who had mortality and morbidity because of COVID, particularly who had mortality in their families, who faced stigma, shame, exclusion at the point of the COVID. Then some other specific groups which we are studying currently, and it will not be that widespread as probably it will be in the West. And that's in hope. And I want to back that hope with the research which we have put in. We have about 10 researches currently going on, from biochemical to structural to psychological researches, which are spread over. And once we actually conclude them, that's the hope. And whatever I tell you is from the initial data which we are seeing. For example, in hospitals, while I told you that we have seen 60,000 patients from March till now, and we have seen 20,000 teleconsultations, and I personally have seen 7,000 video consultations only, besides what is my share of outpatients every week. The impact, there is an impact of COVID on mental health. The impact does not seem to be as huge as probably will be in other parts. But the vulnerable, the people who already had existing mental health illness, the people who had mortality in their families, and people who have neuropsychiatric manifestations because of COVID are the groups which we have dealt with till now. And I hope that it remains limited here only, and we overcome this trauma and disaster also in a way that we have done many a times, and human beings as such emerge triumphant from this. And next year, inshallah, now is the time that vaccination also has started, and let's hope that we are able to come out of this pandemic. And it again remains a reminder to us that we as human beings might think it again and again that we are in control. Probably we are not. Thank you very much.
Thank you a lot, Professor Arshad Hussain. Before I basically would summarize the main points of the your quite a nice lecture. It at the end brought a hope of us. At least two such hopes I could find. It was one that we saw it's at least some positive effect on our kids who started online classes, that improved, that brought a positive change to their mental health. And the second, what I am really happy about is to hear about was that the Institute of Mental Health and Neurosciences here in the Valley was the only psychiatric institution that was still functioning, and which inshallah I hope that you said you will be publishing soon. I would like to ask my participants if they have any question. And I know Gid Sahab, would it be nice if we just open them and they ask directly the questions?
Yes, of course we can do that. I am just asking all the participants to unmute themselves. So whoever wants to ask a question can unmute himself and ask. Go ahead.
In fact, even if you have questions about COVID as well, as much I know, the science of it, I should be able to help you in that as well, because now we have actually talked about the COVID. So let's make it a broader COVID and mental health. Anything you want to know, whatever I know, I will try to answer, because this is an evolving science. So all of us can discuss, debate, and that makes the science, very refreshing.
So, Dr. Arshad, please, I would like to then start from myself, if you provide me this opportunity.
Yeah, please do.
Yes. Okay. So I remember when the COVID actually started. Okay, it started from China. As you said, initially there was this denial. Okay. By the time we realized it is the natural calamity, probably can I say that it was too late? But see, I remember the initial days in this April and May, June. I was in contact with my friends who were in this southern France and northern Italy, like the horrible situation what we saw there, that really probably brought a sort of that you said the fear in us. But somehow when then the COVID actually came here, we couldn't see such a bad scenario. What was the reason for that?
Yes, it's a wonderful question, because lots of people have asked this and I have studied it properly. One is that we have to, what has been the single definitive risk factor of mortality because of COVID? Age.
Age, exactly.
And age-related other comorbidities, because all other comorbidities which are being talked about are age-related, whether it is hypertension, diabetes, they're all age-related comorbidities, happen to people who actually age. Now, average age of an Indian is 26, probably 29. Average age of an Pakistan is 23. Average age of an British is 49, 47. So you can look at the two cultures as such, and first think of that we had same health systems, as good as health system, everything was. So the disease struck, we do not know the treatment, so the mortality has to be much, much higher at that place of time, just because of that. But I tell you, if we had those demographics here, particularly the age demographics, it would have been catastrophic. Now, if we think that it has not have had an impact, if you take the demographic away, if you take the demographic denominator away, and then think that is, you should see, many of you who are on Facebook, there's this Dr. Wahid Saab, who has been professor in SKIMS. He has had a post, he wrote a post lately, because he is in an age group of 65 above. I know because he retired long back, 70 probably, a good teacher and an academician also, a literary person also. He just wrote the names of his friends which were there in March and now are not here.
Oh God.
That is the actual story. Please do not go by the stats what you're saying, because the stats you are saying are the deaths which came to hospital. And I told you that we did not deal with this epidemic 90% in hospitals. We dealt with it in families, in the culture per se. Second point, even in deaths which are attributed to COVID are the only ones who have RT-PCR positive. Now, most of your science too, that this is only 60% of population, even in West, which will have an COVID and an RT-PCR positive. And that should go a little bit lesser here because of lots of things, technique, other things, all of this, And coupled with all these things, so the two things I want to tell, one, that definitely the mortality and morbidity might have been more in cultures where the demographics were, which I talked to, were the aged population. But saying that we had not is again a denial, because please, when we actually retrospect this, when we come out of this pandemic and retrospect, you will see that friends, families, June, July, nobody dies of respiratory failure but a COVID. So you will see that those hundreds of COPD patients which were in our homes, which will come with mild sicknesses in winter to hospitals, are no more with us. May Allah give them Jannah. So we have lost many people, but only thing is the way we deal with the death. is entirely different than how the West deals with it. Each and every human being is places such a value on life. Every death is counted. Not only counted, it really makes them, just think that few deaths happen and they just close down UK again. Because for them, probably human life has such a value, even at 80, 90. And somehow there's little bit desensitization about that in us. One, that some part of it comes because all of us know that we are in line. There's a huge line which is there, and all of us ultimately have the destination is same. The only thing is the time, and most of us believe in that. And second, that how we accept it. So both these things actually make make it us feel that probably the impacts have not been that huge, but that's how I actually look at it as a student of science.
So, Professor Jahangir, I have a question here from one of my fellow participants, Dr. Arshad Jahangir. I would slightly modify his question in the way like he talked about the fear that it created actually helped us. I would also add modify this question in a way, since we have been living sort of in a stressful situation for quite long here, particularly in the valley, and in particular from last 2 years. Do you think it really basically helped us to overcome, whether it had a positive or negative overall impact, final impact on our current situation?
Well, there are no clear-cut answers to that. One, I tell you that I agree that there have been trauma and stress with us from long duration now, and it has its own mental health implications. But I tell you that there are more stories of coping and resilience than trauma per se. But then having this as well, this trauma as well, definitely does have an impact on the mental health. And there was, in fact, if you look at the terms of impact, one of the things which we're studying is that one of the things which we have as a culture, by which we cope and are resilient in front of traumas, is social connectedness. That we take everything in a very culture, in a social way, and try to deal with it collectively rather than individually. While in most of the other traumas and stresses, we were able to deal with it within a physical connectedness. Luckily for us this time, we had first time probably connectedness by means of virtual means. While in all other things which we have dealt till now, the first thing which will happen is that there will be a disconnection happen. We will not know about what has happened to the family, what has happened to the friend. But this time we actually were able to connect to each other by the virtual modes. I still need to study it a little bit deeper before we could actually come and conclude that how did we. Now, while I understand that the way we dealt with it has to do a lot with how we have dealt with traumas from long time now. But how much impact it had in minimizing the mental health impact is something which we probably need to study more.
Thank you a lot, Professor Rashid. One more question from the chat is from Anis. Hello.
Sahil bhai, can I ask a question?
15 दिन तो बहुत ज़्यादा हो गया सर. कुछ.
Go ahead.
Hello.
Tariq sir.
Assalamualaikum, Dr. Arshad.
वालेकुम सलाम.
आप ठीक हैं? साहब, मुझे पूछना था कि एक तो मैंने सवाल पूछा था चैट बॉक्स में कि do you plan any longitudinal studies? So आपने वो जवाब दिया. उसके बाद mentioned that in the talk that many studies are going on. My question is about seroprevalence. You said it's already 60%, and if I remember, that came in media about 2 months back. And I think if that is accurate, then it could have, or it would have actually reached 70 or more by now. In that case, have we reached herd immunity, in your opinion? And if that is true, then I think we don't need any protective
That's-
immunity.
Yeah.
Your opinion,
So
please.
yeah, let's talk about that. One, that when I said that we might have reached to 60% level now, because based on that, in August, the seroprevalence which was done, which all of you have seen as well, we already had 40%.
Please mute. Dr. Gawar Saab, please mute your microphone.
We had 40% seroprevalence, and then all of us know that the kind of tests which we have available currently to do seroprevalence only detect around 70% of people. Then the people who have done research will tell you that many of the people who were reported negative, because there's a level above which we report positive, were not true negative. They were in betweens, either coming down or going up. That actually told us that the seroprevalence might be a little bit, and you are actually seeing already the effects of that. There's no second peak. I actually was somebody who put my foot down that time, and in fact wrote about it, that probably we will not have a second peak, and by December we will have 2-digit cases. Both of these things are true. If you look at severe cases in hospitals, they have really gone down. Number of deaths have already gone down. Number of cases are in 2 digits now, in spite of that, lots of tests are being done. But yes, the other part, should we still consider that out? There's a point there, because the kind of mutations and what kind of immunity does the natural infection infer on us is still not known. So we still do not know how much time the natural infection actually infers the immunity. And second point, that will the natural immunity be effective against the other mutants that one of COVID, because COVID is living with us. That mutations are already occurring. So that makes us that we probably still need to pursue immunity by other means as well. While I might be right or wrong, while I believe that natural immunity will help us actually overcoming, but I do think that pursuing other means of getting immunity, which is vaccination, will double the effort and will help us actually overcome the pandemic in a better way.
All right, Sayed Saab, you have got muted. Just a minute. Please hold on. Yeah, please unmute yourself.
Sorry for that. My connection got lost in the middle. Gitsab, do we have time for taking few more questions?
Yes, please.
Okay.
I have 2 questions.
Okay. Since because of losing my connection, I have lost all the questions in the chat box. Please raise your hand, those who still have some questions. I was seeing some Bilal Saab was having some question. Yeah, SM Zubair Saab. Please unmute SM Zubair Saab.
Dr. Said Mir, am I audible?
Yes,
Yes.
please go ahead.
Dr. Arshid, you gave a very in-depth detail about the COVID-19. But one thing is there, that we don't have any specific medicine for COVID-19. And in fact, the individuals who are infected with it, the antibodies therein, they last for just 3 months. That's what we have been given to understand. Now, in such a situation, how can we just get rid of this menace, which has almost taken half of the population in its grab?
One at the lighter note, that if I knew the answer, I will not be here. I will be somewhere else. So none of us knows actually the real answer. Both the points on the serious thing, that both the points you raised, yes, that's being said. But there's a lot, because I told you that the COVID-19 science is an evolving science. While some people will tell you that 3 months, there are others who tell you 6 months, and some papers which actually tell you lifelong. So there's a lot of debate actually going about this. But we should take hope from how we have fought other pandemics. No pandemic has lasted, and we as human beings have. And this pandemic has been found in that way. One, that initially we did make mistakes as humans. We let a point epidemic become a pan-epidemic, and there have been mistakes by WHO and other organizations in that. But post that, the way science came to our rescue is humongous. The way treatments were devised, let them be sportive treatments only. The way the mortality has come down tremendously. The way the vaccination process has started, the way all of that gives us a lot of hope that we will come out of this pandemic and humans will continue existing on this earth, inshallah, and live happily hereafter.
Time for one last question, please. There was a raised hand from Ajaz Ahmed. Okay, if there is no more question, I would once again thank Dr. Arshid for this wonderful lecture. And in the beginning, when you called it as dual epidemic, so that is truly, like, other than having an epidemic as a COVID-19, it had an impact on human brain and social behavior. What probably you didn't deliberate it this time was it's probably triple epidemic in terms of its impact on economics also. A lot of people are right now stressed because the economic consequences, that they lost jobs, even like different things, the people were thrown out of the jobs. Then you shifted to that human.
In fact, before you conclude, and I like, I missed it last time as well. In fact, Gir Sahab asked it last time, and I will tell you that this is one group, this is another group which we are actually pursuing. Yes, the people who have had an economic impact because of the COVID are again one of the ones who seem to be more vulnerable to develop a mental health issue. And we have seen some signs of that already. You're absolutely spot on and right. I missed that in the last lecture. I missed it today. I'm sorry for that.
Yes. Thank you, sir, Dr. Rashid. And you said that actually the fears, which was actually a nice increase in my own knowledge, that the human civilizations have encountered fears, different fears, and actually because of those fears they have evolved over the centuries, leading to the level where we now. And that the COVID once again showed us, like, we are still vulnerable to different effects which can lead to mental health morbidity. And another thing which was very important that you discussed was the initially, I hope that is not too much prevalent now, was the stigmatization of the COVID effective family members. I remember also in my neighborhood when one of our relatives died, they literally, after his burial, like in the evening, nobody brought them even a tea or the food. For whole night, they had to sleep without any proper food. So much were afraid, even the neighborhoods. Fortunately, now that much fear of COVID has gone, and even the system is now more or less stabilized. And then you talked about the stigmatization of COVID-related deaths and the impact on the mental health of the kids. That kids at the home got affected by that. Among the good things you discussed were the side affected good things was that the kids started online classes that improved their that brought a positive change in their mental health, and that in Kashmir we could manage it probably better. I thank you once again, Dr. Arshid. I hope sometime to attend your lectures also in person when the COVID will be gone. I hope this online mode does not last for long.
Surely soon, inshallah.
Thank you a lot. Yes, I will give it to Gir Sahab.
Right. Thank you very much, Dr. Arshid Saab. Thank you very much for that thought-provoking talk once again on COVID-19 and mental health. We in Kashmir have been particularly vulnerable to issues related to mental health because we have been faced with a double whammy of double lockdown. First, earlier last year in 2019, post abrogation of Article 370, and then after this pandemic outbreak. So we are living in turbulent times and are compacted by the COVID-19 pandemic. The issue of mental health has become not only relevant, but crucial. And mental health is more than the presence or absence of a mental illness. It is a crossroad between emotional, psychological, and physical well-being. This year, many people have faced serious challenges to their mental health. Along with the health impacts of the disease, COVID-19 has led to self and social isolation also. It has also led to disconnection from family and friends, quarantine and lockdowns on movement, resulting in more people than ever experiencing feelings of helplessness, isolation, grief, anxiety, and depression. And the demand for health support services has increased exponentially. So has the demand for more awareness, the demand for more education. And in that regard, you have been doing a human service by getting in close contact with as many teachers as possible. We might have covered around 300-400 teachers so far. So our kudos and salutations to you for your support and cooperation in extending that awareness to the teachers working at different colleges who will be in a better position to deal with these kind of issues and help their students in dealing with such issues. So thank you once again. We would love to have you again in future, physical or online at HRDC, deliberating on more such issues. Thank you very much. Am I audible?
Yes, yes, sir.
Dr. Saab, thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
And
Thank
now,
you, everybody.
yes, you can take a leave if you want, sir.
Thank you so much.
So, dear participants, now we are done with the lead lecture of today. And now we'll be proceeding for the next this thing which is planned, that is the written test, because we are inching towards the culmination of this program. Tomorrow we are going to have the valedictory session where our last working day is tomorrow. So we will be we'll be now proceeding for the written test based on the lectures delivered by the lead resource persons. There will be, as already stated earlier in the forenoon, there will be 30 questions, 30 MCQs, 30 marks, and 30 minutes. So I have, I hope all of you have updated your email IDs on the online form, which I had reopened once again for your convenience. So I have taken the email IDs, the updated ones, which you have entered onto the online form. So before I send the link to your respective email IDs, there are a few instructions. One is that you will get it only in your email ID. There will be no other link posted elsewhere, or no, don't go to Google Classroom or anywhere else. It will only be in your email IDs, which you have provided to us. Secondly, if you are not able to see the question paper in your email inbox, please try to visit the promotion. There is a separate folder for promotions. Sometimes it goes to the promotions folder, or sometimes it goes to the spam folder. So do visit your spam folder or promotions folder if you are not able to see it in your inbox. Then you have only 30 minutes. After that, the link will be closed. This link will not be, you will not be able to submit after 30 minutes. So you are all requested to try to complete it within 30 minutes. And at the end of filling the form, when you submit it, sometimes there is that what is that captcha verification is required for some. Unless you do that captcha verification, you will not be able to submit. Captcha verification means that you have to tick the boxes showing some signals or traffic lights or whatever. So that is generated by the Google itself. So you have to verify that captcha. It may not come for all of you, only for some of you it may appear. So verify that on captcha, then you have to submit. And in case anybody still does not receive in your inbox, maybe you have given a wrong email ID, you have misspelled your email ID somewhere, then all you need to do is, under such circumstances, is that you just send me your email ID on the WhatsApp group. You just send me and you tell me that you have not received. I will send it again to anybody who doesn't receive it. All you need to do is give me your email ID in the WhatsApp group and I will resend it. And then, while you fill up the form, first there is the date. You have to write the date in the respective format, the format which is shown in the question paper. That is, you have to follow the format, and all the answers to all the questions are required. If you miss out to answer any question, you will not be able to submit. You have to reply to all the questions, because it is mandatory to reply all. So the date format is first you have to write the month, then you have to write the day, and then the year. So you have to follow that format while you fill up first month, then date, then day, and then year. So please, if you suppose you do not know the answer of, you can click any option, but don't leave it without clicking any option, because answers are required for all the questions. Then only you will be able to submit your question, your answer paper. And then once you submit, you will receive a notification that your question paper has been received, but your marks will not be revealed instantly. They will be revealed later after the checking, etc. is done. Manual evaluation is done. Then only you will receive answers to your questions, and your marks you will be receiving in your email. So wish you all the very best. We have tried to maintain the difficulty level at the lowest possible, because it's not that difficult examination. Just the fundamentals need to be known. We just want to ensure that you know the fundamentals of each and every topic covered during this course. So the difficulty level will not be very difficult. So I wish you all the very best. And now you can. I will, and then I will. I will just be sending it right now. So you have 30 minutes. It is 10 minutes past 3 o'clock. So you have time up till 3:40. If you take a few minutes more, doesn't matter. I can, give a few minutes more if you face some difficulties in opening the paper or something. So don't worry about that. Now you can check your email IDs. The link has been sent. You can check your email IDs and see if you have received the question paper and start answering. If anybody hasn't received, give me your email ID on the WhatsApp, but wait for a couple of minutes, because sometimes the network is slow. It takes a couple of minutes to reach your inbox. After a couple of minutes, you can check and you can revert back to me. We will share the link for attendance later after you submit your form. After that, we will share the attendance link. Muzaffar Saab will share the attendance link after that. He will wait for my signal. हेलो हेलो वालेकुम सलाम। वालेकुम सलाम। जी नहीं, आपका नेटवर्क स्लो होगा। आप कुलगाम से भर रहे हो फॉर्म? तो फिल आउट इन गूगल फॉर्म्स आएगा। जैसे आप ईमेल खोलोगे ना, ऊपर लिखा होगा फिल आउट इन गूगल फॉर्म्स, उसी पे क्लिक करो। आपका ईमेल, वो वाला ईमेल आप खोलो। हाँ, उसको आप नहीं, उसको वो आप इसमें खोल रहे हो ना, जीमेल में। आप गूगल, आप इसको वहाँ ईमेल में देखिए, ऊपर लिखा है बॉक्स में फिल आउट इन गूगल फॉर्म्स, उस पर क्लिक कीजिए। फिल आउट इन गूगल फॉर्म्स। आप होल्ड पे रहिए। All participants are requested to submit their answers, please. Time is up. I will give another 5 minutes and try to finish and submit in another 5 minutes. Time is already up. I am giving 5 minutes more because some people had some trouble in opening the form. Therefore, I am giving 5 minutes more. Please try to submit now. Try to submit your answers within 5 minutes, then the form will be closed and form will not be accepting any responses after that. So please try to submit as soon as possible. Assalamu alaikum. Some of the participants have not submitted their answers as yet. I am requesting all the participants to submit your replies, please, because later on the link will be closed and you will not be able to submit. All the participants are once again requested to submit their duly filled forms, please, as soon as possible, because the extra time is also up and you will not be able to submit hereafter if the link is closed. Therefore, I am requesting all the participants once again to submit your forms, please. Some of the forms have not been submitted as yet, I can see. Meanwhile, stay back. Those who have already submitted, please stay back in this meeting because some announcement is yet to come. You have to fill up the attendance form also separately after 5 minutes. You have to fill up this attendance form after 5 minutes, and then some announcement regarding your registration also will come up. Please stay back. Okay, the announcement is that some of the participants have filled the online forms but have not submitted the hard copy at HRDC office. So all those participants who have filled the online form but have not submitted their hard copies, but provided they are eligible and provided they have attended all the sessions and have completed all the formalities, then only they can submit at the HRDC form. No new candidates or new forms will be accepted. We're not going to accept any new forms or new applications. So only the ones who have already been admitted, only the ones who have paid their fee well in advance before the start of this course, who have been relieved before the start of this course, have got the relieving orders from their principals and HODs. Only those people can submit hard copies of their form at HRDC. And though some of you who had not filled the online form, some participants had submitted the hard copies but had not filled the online form. They are requested to fill the online form. The link is open. Still the link is open. They can fill the online form. Muzaffar Saab, I will unmute you so that you can tell which participant is yet to complete which formality. I will unmute yourself, Muzaffar Saab.
Okay, sir.
Please tell us who are the participants who have to fill certain formalities, because tomorrow is the last day of the course and tomorrow is the valedictory. Then you will not be able to complete those formalities. Muzaffar Saab will tell us who are these participants. Tell us one by one. Yes,
It
Muzaffar
is
Saab.
Dr. Bablu Samanta, Assistant Professor Mathematics. इनका सर he has applied online only. उनका hard copy नहीं आया यहाँ तक यहाँ.
तो उनको बाय पोस्ट भेजना पड़ेगा वेस्ट बंगाल से जी.
ठीक है सर. इसके बाद सर नेक्स्ट कैंडिडेट है फेरोज अहमद भट्ट साहब. वो हमारी कश्मीर यूनिवर्सिटी से हैं. असिस्टेंट प्रोफेसर मैथमेटिक्स. फेरोज अहमद भट्ट, डॉक्टर फेरोज अहमद भट्ट. इनका सर एप्लीकेशन फॉर्म पेंडिंग है और रिलीविंग ऑर्डर भी अभी नहीं पहुंचा इधर. हेलो.
यस, आप बोलते जाइए, आप बोलते रहिए.
यस सर. इसके बाद है सर परवेज अहमद मल्ला. इनका रिलीविंग ऑर्डर अभी पेंडिंग है.
राइट, नेक्स्ट.
इसके बाद सर अख्तर हुसैन मलिक. इनका रिलीविंग ऑर्डर पेंडिंग है अभी. ये जीडीसी कोर से हैं. इसके बाद सर मुबशिर हमीद मीर. इनका रिलीविंग ऑर्डर.
गिर सर
जी.
एक्चुअली अख्तर हुसैन मलिक भी बोल रहे थे ना, तो मैंने अभी सबमिट किया है उनको. आपको मेल किया है मैंने, दोनों रिलीविंग ऑर्डर और वो भी प्रेजेंटेशन भी.
कीजिए, डोंट मेल मी एनीथिंग. आप सीधे एकेडमिक स्टाफ कॉलेज के ईमेल आईडी पे भेजिए.
उसी पे मैंने मेल किया है.
आप चेक कर लेना उसको.
सर आपका चेक कर लेता हूँ.
ओके ओके ओके।
इसके बाद सर मुबशिर हमीद मीर, इनका रिलीविंग ऑर्डर पेंडिंग है।
ओके।
इसके बाद सर कौसर परवीन, इनका रिलीविंग ऑर्डर पेंडिंग है।
अच्छा।
इसके बाद तारिक मकबूल साहब का रिलीविंग ऑर्डर पेंडिंग है।
Okay, they will not get the certificates until and unless they do not complete all these formalities.
इसके
जी,
बाद सर गौहर हुसैन भट्ट एसपी कॉलेज से, इनका एप्लीकेशन फॉर्म और रिलीविंग ऑर्डर सर पेंडिंग है अभी।
कौन सा, ऑनलाइन एप्लीकेशन या हार्ड कॉपी?
हार्ड कॉपी सर।
वो आप साथ में बोलते जाइए, किसको ऑनलाइन पेंडिंग है, किसको हार्ड कॉपी, वो साथ में बोलते रहिए।
ठीक है सर। ये गौहर हुसैन भट्ट, इनका हार्ड कॉपी ऑफ एप्लीकेशन फॉर्म एंड रिलीविंग ऑर्डर पेंडिंग है।
ओके।
इसके बाद सर राजू कुमार है, इनका रिलीविंग ऑर्डर पेंडिंग है।
ओके।
इसके बाद सर गौहर रशीद साहब हैं, इनका एप्लीकेशन फॉर्म नहीं, हार्ड कॉपी एप्लीकेशन फॉर्म की नहीं आई।
ऑलराइट।
इसके बाद सर ये समीर अहमद गुफकारी साहब हैं, इनका रिलीविंग ऑर्डर पेंडिंग है।
ओके।
इसके बाद सर है तारिक अहमद गनाई साहब,
राइट।
इन्होंने सर ऑनलाइन अप्लाई किया है, लेकिन इनका हार्ड कॉपी और रिलीविंग ऑर्डर नहीं आया है।
ओके।
इसके बाद सर एजाज अहमद डार साहब हैं, इनका रिलीविंग ऑर्डर अभी पेंडिंग है। इसके बाद सर नियाज अहमद मीर साहब, इनका भी रिलीविंग ऑर्डर पेंडिंग है।
ओके।
इसके बाद डॉक्टर ज्योति तनेजा, इनका एप्लीकेशन फॉर्म पेंडिंग है सर।
वो बाय पोस्ट भेजेंगी वहां से, दिल्ली से। जी।
बस सर इतने कैंडिडेट्स हैं जिनका अभी कुछ न कुछ पेंडिंग था।
So all these candidates, participants are kindly requested to fulfill these formalities, whatever has been narrated by Muzaffar Saab, because their certificates will not be issued to them unless they complete these formalities. These are very important formalities. Wherever relieving order is pending, get it. Wherever has to be deposited, get it. Wherever hard copy of the application is to be sent, send it. And wherever, then we'll check the attendance also. And we'll take into consideration that will be mentioned in the certificates, how many sessions have been attended. And then the evaluation will be, done as per UGC norms. That includes participant presentation as well as the written test. And the
एक और
overall.
request है सर इसमें सर एसपी कॉलेज से जो आए हैं, इन्होंने सर खाली ये दिया है परमिशन, एनओसी लाई है इन्होंने वहां से, तो वो एक प्रॉपर ये सर रिलीविंग ऑर्डर तो नहीं है वो सर।
अच्छा, आप ये मुजफ्फर साहब, आप ये लिस्ट जो है एक्सेल या वर्ड फॉर्मेट में इसमें व्हाट्सएप ग्रुप में डाल देना।
ओके सर।
तो वो आराम से देख लेंगे।
ओके सर।
Right. So, dear participants, tomorrow we will be meeting. We'll be meeting tomorrow at 10 o'clock sharp. और मुजफ्फर साहब, कल आप अटेंडेंस सुबह 10 बजे ही डालिएगा। कल एक पहली अटेंडेंस कल सुबह 10 बजे डालना, फिर दूसरी अटेंडेंस 11 बजे। So first attendance will be posted at 10 a.m. tomorrow. Muzaffar Saab, have you posted the attendance link for this session? Muzaffar Saab, have you posted?
I'm just waiting for your call, sir.
हाँ, अभी आप डाल दीजिए अटेंडेंस का लिंक, आप व्हाट्सएप ग्रुप में भी डाल दीजिए, यहाँ भी डाल दीजिए।
ओके सर, मैं अभी डाल देता हूँ।
और कल हम सुबह 10 बजे पहला लिंक डालेंगे, दूसरा अटेंडेंस लिंक 11 बजे डालेंगे।
Yes sir, yes sir.
All right, so tomorrow please be join us at 10 a.m. sharp. First we'll have a session by Professor Siddiqui Saab. Then at 11 we have another session by Professor Mohammad Amin Sofi Saab. And then we have the valedictory session at 2:30 p.m. And if any participant presentation is left, that will be taken up at 2 o'clock. So is there any participant who has not presented as yet? I will allow the participants to unmute themselves so that if anybody has to say something, I'm asking all to unmute. Is there any participant who has not presented as yet? Is there any participant who has not presented as yet?
Yes, sir, I have a submission.
Yes, please.
Sir, I have just submitted this Google form regarding this exam. but I haven't received acknowledgement from your side. I just wish to know if you have received my form.
What's your email ID?
Sir, zubairhuma@gmail.com.
Just a minute, I will tell you. That starts with Z or X? Zubair.
Sir, it's Sophie Mohammed Zubair.
Okay, Sophie. आप तो जुबैर बोल रहे थे. Just a minute, I'll check it out. Sophie. No, I'm talking about the email ID.
Oh, yes, it starts from Z.
Okay. No, I think your form has not been received as yet. You can resubmit. उसको आप resubmit.
But I'm just trying to get in. I'm not talking about sir attendance. I'm talking
Yeah,
about exam form.
I know you please resubmit. We have not.
Sir, for that matter, you need to activate that link because it's not allowing me to get in.
I will activate for you. Okay, submit again. Any who has not presented, whoever has not opportunity to present,
Gear sir,
Yes, sir.
I'm Ejaz Ahmedi. Please verify which Ejaz has to submit this reading order. Please.
वो आप सब डाल देंगे उसको WhatsApp ग्रुप में डाल देंगे उसको. Don't worry.
Assalamu alaikum, sir.
Gear sir, assalamu
So I want to know whether you received my the form or not.
let's say confirmation is assalamu.
Huh?
Your confirmation I know mail us miss assalamu.
Okay, sir. Okay, sir.
Information ये उस time आप your
Yes, sir. Assalamu
वालेकुम सलाम.
Yes, sir.
मीर साहब बताइए, डॉक्टर साहब बताइए.
Assalamualaikum. Sir, those participants who had not been as reporters or and all this, so they need not to be like that because I had not been any reporter or for any of the sessions.
And there are no points separately because we get an upper.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Gear sir, I have just one query, sir. Hello.
Sir, what about the pending fee? How can we submit that?
Sir, Gear sir, I have just one query, sir. Hello.
Okay, so Ayaz Mahmood Dar साहब आपको कुछ कहना है? All right, so Muzaffar साहब will post the जो pending formalities हैं वो post करेंगे WhatsApp group में. और I think we have received forms from all the people. Hopefully none of you have missed to submit your form. And attendance link भी post हो गया होगा. So please fill up your attendance form also. All participants are requested to fill up their attendance. Yeah, that link has been posted in the WhatsApp group. So please post, as well as it has been posted in the Zoom meeting room. So you can fill up your attendance form and then you can leave the room. Thank you very much for being with us. So we are now heading for our culmination of this course. Tomorrow we'll be concluding and tomorrow we'll be having the valedictory session. Thank you very much. See you tomorrow at 10 a.m. sharp. I want to remind you once again, we will be taking attendance at 10 o'clock and that will be open only for 5 or 10 minutes. So please try to join as soon as possible. Otherwise, it will not be reopened later. Thank you very much. Bye. Allah Hafiz.